There are moments in life, small moments, that turn out not to be small at all. They become the hinges upon which history itself turns. Imagine a tired seamstress on a public bus, her body weary from a long day of work. She is asked to give up her seat, to make herself smaller, to erase her own presence for the comfort of another. But on this day, something inside her, a deep and quiet well of strength, refused. This was not a loud refusal. It was not a shout. It was a simple, it was profound and world-changing no. To understand the woman on the bus, you must first understand the little girl she once was. Rosa Louise Macaulay was welcomed into this world on February 4, 1913, in Tuskegee, Alabama. Her early years were shaped by the love and resilience of her mother, of her grandparents, after her parents separated. It was in this environment, surrounded by family, that the seeds of her quiet strength were planted and watered. Her grandfather, a former enslaved person, stood guard on their porch with a shotgun when the Ku Klux Klan marched through their town. He taught her, by example, not to bow to fear. These were not just stories. They were lessons in survival, dignity, and the importance of standing your ground. Education was a treasure, but one that was difficult to obtain. As a young black child in the rural South, Rosa had to walk miles to a one-room schoolhouse that was only open for a few months of the year, while the new, well-equipped school for white children stood as a constant reminder of the world's unfairness. Still, she pursued learning with a deep hunger. Her mother, a teacher herself, homeschooled her, instilling in her a love of knowledge and a belief in her own potential. This early experience with the blatant inequality of the school system was one of her first and most personal encounters with the systemic injustice that she would one day challenge so profoundly. It taught her that the fight for equality was not abstract. It was about access, opportunity, and the right to a full and complete life. As she grew, the world continued to present its harsh realities. The Jim Crow laws were not just signs on a water fountain. They were a web of rules and social codes that aimed to control every aspect of black life. Rosa remembered having to let white children pass on the sidewalk, of being spoken to with disrespect, and of the constant underlying threat of violence for any perceived transgression. These experiences did not make her bitter. Instead, they forged in her a steely resolve. She learned to navigate this world with a quiet dignity that was, in itself, a form of resistance. She was observing, learning, and strengthening the moral compass that would guide her most famous decision. Life took a beautiful turn in 1932 when Rosa met and married Raymond Parks. He was a barber in Montgomery, but he was so much more than that. Raymond had a fire for justice. He was an active NAACP member, unafraid to demand change even when it was dangerous. He saw in Rosa not just a beautiful woman, but a partner with defiance and strength. He supported her finishing high school, a rare achievement for a black woman then. Their marriage was a true partnership, built on love, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to fighting for a better world. Through Raymond, Rosa's involvement deepened. He encouraged her to attend NAACP meetings. In 1943, she became the chapter's secretary. This was not ceremonial. It was real, difficult, and often dangerous work. She meticulously documented racial discrimination and violence. She traveled dusty Alabama backroads, interviewed people who had been brutalized, families who had lost loved ones to lynchings, individuals denied basic human rights. She recorded their painful stories. Her neat handwriting captured ugly truths. The work exposed her to the rawest injustice and steeled her resolve. As secretary to E.D. Nixon, she was at the center of Montgomery's civil rights network. She was a worker, not a figurehead. She organized files, wrote letters, and helped plan legal strategies against segregation. The experience taught her the systemic nature of racism and the immense coordinated effort to dismantle it. She worked alongside people risking their jobs, their safety, and their lives. She learned the movement was a community, building change piece by piece. Long before the bus incident, Rosa had personal clashes with segregation. She'd been thrown off buses for refusing unfair drivers' demands. She often chose to walk home rather than submit to humiliation of entering the front to pay and reboarding through the crowded rear. That rule was designed to demean black passengers. These were daily battles for her dignity. So when people said she was tired in 1955, they were right. Not physically. She was tired of giving in. The day was Thursday, December 1st, 1955. The afternoon was fading, Montgomery Street at dusk, winter chill settling in. Rosa Parks finished her workday at the Montgomery Fair Department store, her hands likely still feeling the texture of fabrics. Threads on the counter, close-up of hands. She walked to her usual bus stop at Court Square. She boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus. She paid her fare. She took a seat in the first row of the colored section. Diagram: 1950s Montgomery bus seating showing colored section and Rosa's approximate location. The 10 seats reserved exclusively for whites. Front section. It was a routine she'd performed countless times. A small daily negotiation with a system designed to remind her of her place. As the bus made its way, it began to fill up. Several white passengers boarded at one stop. All the seats in the white section were occupied. One white man left standing in the aisle.
Driver checking the rearview mirror. He called back to the first row of the colored section. Rosa and 3 other black passengers seated there. He told them to give up their seats.
The demand hung in the air, familiar and ugly. The other 3 passengers reluctantly stood and moved back. But Rosa Parks did not move.
The driver noticed her stillness and walked back to her row. "Are you going to stand up?" he demanded.
A lifetime of indignities and witness and tireless work culminated.
Rosa Parks looked up and said, "No." He threatened to have her arrested if she did not comply. She remained steadfast, calm, but unwavering. "You may do that," she replied.
She was not angry. She was not loud. She was simply resolved. A profound sense of peace and determination. She was done being pushed around. This was her line. She would not cross it. The driver called the police. 2 officers arriving. Rosa quietly arrested, fingerprinted, briefly jailed. Her crime: violating a local ordinance. Her act: civil disobedience. News spread through phone calls, word of mouth, and community conversations. E.D. Nixon hears the news. He knows immediately this is not just another arrest. This was the moment, the person, the time, the circumstances. Rosa Parks, a woman of quiet strength, the catalyst they had been waiting for. The arrest of Rosa Parks was the spark, but the fire was built by a community that was organized, ready, and utterly fed up. That very night, E.D. Nixon began making a series of crucial phone calls. He knew that a legal challenge alone was not enough. They needed to mobilize the people. He called church leaders, community activists, his voice filled with urgency. One of the most important calls was to a relatively new pastor in town, a 26-year-old man with a powerful voice and a PhD in theology, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Though initially hesitant, Dr. King agreed a citywide protest was necessary. Leaders called for a one-day boycott on Monday, December 5th, Rosa's trial day. The next day, a flurry of activity consumed the black community. Joanne Robinson, the Women's Political Council, worked through the night, printing tens of thousands of leaflets. The leaflets called for every black citizen to stay off the buses. Don't ride the bus to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. The leaflets were distributed through churches, businesses, and volunteers. It was a massive grassroots effort, organized swiftly and effectively, long before the internet. On the morning of December 5th, Montgomery woke to a stunning sight. The buses, usually packed with black workers, maids, laborers, were almost completely empty. They rumbled down the streets, hollow and silent. Black residents walked, sometimes for miles, to get to their jobs. They organized carpools, with drivers picking up strangers on street corners. They used black-owned taxis charging the same fare as the bus. The one-day protest was an overwhelming success, near 100% participation, shocking city officials. That afternoon, Rosa Parks was found guilty and fined. but the victory that mattered was on the streets. That evening, thousands packed Holt Street Baptist Church for a mass meeting. The energy was electric. Hope, determination, and righteous anger.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., newly elected MIA president, delivered his first major civil rights speech. He spoke of justice and nonviolence, of protest and love. There comes a time, he thundered, that people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression.
The crowd voted unanimously to continue the boycott until their demands for dignity and fair treatment were met. The long walk had begun, and there was no turning back. The Montgomery bus boycott was not a sprint. It was a marathon of endurance, a daily test of faith and commitment that lasted for an astonishing 381 days. Every single morning, the black citizens of Montgomery woke up and made a conscious choice not to ride the bus. They walked, In the biting cold of winter and the oppressive humidity of the Alabama summer, maids, janitors, laborers, cooks, they walked miles to their jobs in the white parts of town, their tired feet tracing a new map of freedom on the city sidewalks. Their journey was more than a physical trek. It was a spiritual pilgrimage, a testament to their collective will. The sight of empty buses and determined walkers became the enduring symbol of the movement. To sustain such a massive protest, the community developed an intricate and ingenious transportation system. The Montgomery Improvement Association, under Dr. King's leadership, organized a complex carpool network. Dispatch stations, pickup points, hundreds of volunteer drivers, their personal vehicles. Churches donated station wagons, which became the unofficial taxis of the movement. Donations from across the country, donations from around the world to buy gas, to maintain the vehicles. This private taxi system was the backbone of the boycott, a logistical masterpiece born of necessity and community spirit. It showed that when a people are united for a cause, they can create their own systems and support their own needs. The city's white leadership did not stand idly by. They fought back with intimidation and legal harassment. Police officers ticketed carpool drivers for minor, often imaginary traffic violations. The city sued the MIA, claiming the carpool was an illegal, unlicensed transit system. Dr. King, Rosa Parks. Dozens of other leaders were arrested and indicted on charges of conspiring to interfere with a lawful business. Their homes were bombed, but this campaign of fear did not break the community's spirit. It strengthened it. Each arrest, each act of violence only deepened their resolve and brought national media attention to the injustice unfolding in Montgomery. The protesters met this aggression not with violence, but with prayer, song, and an unwavering commitment to nonviolence. While the people walked, lawyers for the NAACP fought the battle in the courts. The case, Browder versus Gale, challenged the constitutionality of bus segregation itself. Finally, on November 13, 1956, the news arrived like a thunderclap of victory. The United States Supreme Court declared that Alabama's state and local laws requiring segregation on buses were unconstitutional. On December 20th, the federal order was served on the city, and the MIA officially voted to end the boycott. The next day, Rosa Parks boarded a city bus. Martin Luther King Jr. boarded a city bus. Other leaders boarded a city bus. Rosa, fittingly, took a seat right near the front. Her long, quiet protest was finally over, and a new era for civil rights had dawned. Becoming an international symbol of the civil rights movement came at a great personal cost for Rosa Parks. While she was celebrated as the mother of the movement, her life in Montgomery became incredibly difficult. She was fired from her job as a seamstress at the department store. Her husband, Raymond, was forced to leave his job. His employer forbade him from discussing his wife or the boycott. Death threats, harassing phone calls. The city she had helped to change was no longer safe or welcoming for her family. The price of her courage was her peace and her livelihood. In 1957, seeking safety and new opportunities, Rosa, Raymond, her mother, made the difficult decision to leave Montgomery behind. They moved north to Detroit, Michigan, where Rosa had family. The move was not an easy escape to a promised land. They struggled financially for several years. Rosa faced health problems from immense stress. For a time, the celebrated icon worked in a sewing factory, away from the public eye. she was not bitter. She was realistic about the long road ahead. She understood changing a law on paper didn't instantly change hearts and minds. Her public life, however, was far from over. In 1965, her path to service took a new turn when U.S. Congressman John Conyers Jr. hired her to work in his congressional office. She held that role for over 2 decades, until retirement in 1988. In this position, she continued her life's work helping others. She was not just a figurehead, she was a dedicated caseworker, assisting constituents with issues like housing, healthcare, jobs. She worked quietly and diligently, away from the national spotlight. She was, once again, doing essential, everyday work of building a better world. Rosa Parks never sought the title of hero. She often expressed discomfort with being singled out, always emphasizing the collective effort of the thousands who walked, organized, sacrificed. She would gently correct people who described her as a simple, tired seamstress. She explained the depth of her prior activism and that her fatigue was a fatigue with injustice. Yet, the world needed a symbol, and her image became one of a generation's struggle for freedom. Her quiet strength gave a face to the movement, inspiring countless others to find their own courage. Rosa Parks's act on the bus was not the end of her story. It was a new beginning in a lifetime dedicated to human rights. After moving to Detroit, she remained a powerful and respected voice. She lent her support to the broader civil rights movement, participating in major events like the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. She was honored there, but not given a speaking role. She also marched from Selma to Montgomery in 1965 to demand voting rights, returning to the state where her ordeal and triumph had unfolded. Her presence linked the movement's past to its present struggles. Her activism extended beyond racial segregation. She opposed the Vietnam War. She spoke out against apartheid in South Africa. In Detroit, she fought housing discrimination. She challenged police brutality. She worked to expand economic opportunity. She knew desegregating a bus was only one step. True equality required dismantling systemic barriers in every area of life. Working with Congressman Conyers, she helped ordinary people navigate a system that was still far from fair. In 1987, she co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development. Its Pathways to Freedom program takes young people on bus tours to important civil rights sites. She personally mentored countless youth, sharing her story as a living lesson in courage, responsibility, and choice. She wanted young people to understand sacrifices made for them and to feel empowered to continue the journey toward justice. As she grew older, the nation began to formally recognize her contributions. In 1996, President Bill Clinton awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 1999, she received the Congressional Gold Medal. Yet Rosa Parks remained profoundly humble. She accepted honors on behalf of unsung heroes. She never lost her quiet, gentle spirit. Her life's work was about freedom and dignity for all. Rosa Parks passed away on October 24, 2005, at the age of 92. The nation mourned the loss of a true American hero. In an unprecedented tribute for a private citizen, her body lay in honor in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, a space usually reserved for presidents, military leaders. Thousands of people from all walks of life filed past her casket, paying their respects to the woman whose simple act of defiance had reshaped the American social and legal landscape. Her death was not an end, but a moment of reflection on the incredible journey of progress she had helped to launch. She left behind a world that was far from perfect, but immeasurably better than the one she was born into. Her legacy is not just etched in monuments, street signs, and place names, schools that bear her name. It lives in the very fabric of our society. It is present every time a person of any color sits freely in any seat on a public bus. It is present in the laws that protect our civil rights and in the ongoing work to ensure those laws are enforced. Rosa Parks taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. She redefined heroism, showing us that it requires a loud voice or a grand gesture. Sometimes the most powerful act in the world is to simply sit still with conviction and refuse to be diminished. The story of Rosa Parks continues to be a vital lesson for every new generation. It teaches our children that history is not just made by generals, presidents, but by ordinary people who find the strength to do extraordinary things.